What would soccer be without its fans? In this video, we will present you 10 moments when fans clearly went one step too far. We show you blatant actions that led to match abandonment, fans storming the pitch, and also explain why former Portuguese superstar Luis Figo had a pig's head thrown at him from Barca fans. So be sure to stay tuned here at Wonderlane. We start directly with a controversial scene from this year's Europa League season, of which some fans of Galatasaray Istanbul had to listen to a lot of criticism. The fans of the traditional Turkish club have been known for decades for their unconditional support of their team and try with all means to help their team to victory. But this year, when Galatasaray faced FC Barcelona in one of the Europa League's round of 16 matches, they got carried away with a controversial action. The night before the game, numerous fans positioned themselves in front of the Barca players' hotel and began shooting loud fireworks into the night sky at 4 in the morning. In this way, they wanted to prevent the Barca stars from sleeping, ensuring that they would be unfocused and tired in the upcoming match. However, this action caused criticism even among some Galatasaray fans, because in their eyes, it has nothing to do with fair sportsmanship. In retrospect, FC Barcelona could care less about the action, as they were able to decide this round of 16 in their favor. Let's continue with a violent action from this year's World Cup qualifying playoffs, about which one of the currently best players in the world is still extremely annoyed. The player in question is none other than Mo Salah of FC Liverpool, who was caught fighting with his country Egypt for one of the last tickets to the World Cup in Qatar. In the match against Senegal, the decision could not have been more exciting. Both teams ultimately had to play each other in a penalty shootout, with Senegal as the home team having a decisive advantage, namely a stadium full of their own fans. When Salah took the first penalty shot for Egypt, he felt the full force of the Senegalese fans. As if out of nowhere, they aimed dozens of laser pointers right at his face to somehow distract him. This tactic worked flawlessly, and Salah, who is actually one of the best penalty takers in the world, smashed the ball several meters over the goal. However, since Egypt lost this penalty shootout shortly after, also due to Salah's miss, criticism accumulated worldwide that the referee should have stopped the game until the fans stopped the unsportsmanlike action. As this did not happen, Senegal can now enjoy a ticket to the World Cup in Qatar. Now we come to another blatant fan action that ended up with this pig's head landing on the field. But what had happened? In 2002, Real Madrid and FC Barcelona met in the El Clasico. For decades, this game has symbolized what is probably the most blatant rivalry between two top clubs, and it has been the subject of countless headlines and scandals. But the 2002 match was under very special circumstances. Until the previous season, Barca had one of the best players of his generation in their ranks, the Portuguese Luis Figo. When the news broke that Figo would be moving to the big rival from Madrid, he was absolutely devastated among all Barca fans. When he then celebrated his return to the camp a short time later, this time, however, in the Real Madrid jersey, he was probably the most hated person in the stadium. When he went for a corner and positioned himself in front of the Barca Ultra block, the unbelievable happened, and a fan actually threw a real pig's head at him. Although nothing happened to Figo, the rest of the Real players interrupted the game for some time and had to leave the pitch under police protection, and to this day is one of the most violent actions that has ever happened in a Clasico. Next, we come to Cristiano Ronaldo, who has often been disturbed by streakers during the game. Most of the time, he reacts very professionally and even takes time for photos, even when the streakers are actually interrupting the game. When he played for Juventus Turin in 2019, he was so surprised by a fan shortly after the final whistle that a normal photo would have been absolutely unthinkable. After the end of the game, CR7 was actually still discussing with his teammates before he was grabbed from behind by the shoulder out of nowhere and almost knocked over. The intruder was immediately led away by stewards, but Ronaldo was visibly annoyed for a long time after the scene. Again and again, he grabbed his shoulder and gave the impression that he might have slightly injured himself during the altercation with the streaker. Let's continue with a gigantic scandal that overshadowed the Euro 2016 in France for a long time and triggered a big discussion about violence among soccer fans. During the tournament, thousands of English and Russian hooligans clashed in Marseille and engaged in fierce battles. Instead of doing this in a secluded forest, as is usually the case, they fought in the middle of the French metropolis, destroying just about everything that got in their way. After hours of fighting, the city was then almost unrecognizable and numerous cars, cafes, and stores were destroyed. In the wake of these riots, the police presence was significantly increased for the rest of the tournament, but to this day, one has hardly experienced a similarly blatant situation between hooligans. Now we take a look at a bizarre moment from 2018 that was supposed to dominate the coverage of a German Bundesliga match. Instead of the game making headlines, a single fan managed to make himself the center of attention. There was a man sitting in the Schalke fan block who, out of nowhere and in public, started to touch himself. Well, let's call it like that. When he was discovered by police officers and confronted for causing a public nuisance, he bust his collar. He was immediately arrested, but to this day is probably the most disgusting action that has ever happened in a German stadium. Let's continue with an insanely unsportsmanlike action that is not only completely unnecessary and dangerous, but also had serious consequences for VfL Bochum. Specifically, it concerns the Bundesliga match between the VfL and Borussia Mönchengladbach in the current season. The actually unspectacular match was overshadowed by a terrible action. In the middle of the second half, one of the linesmen was hit in the neck with a full beer mug and subsequently slumped. Due to this incident, the game was then abandoned and scored as a 2-0 victory for Gladbach. But that was not enough. On the one hand, the police are now investigating for dangerous bodily harm, and on the other hand, VfL Bochum must pay a heavy fine. The fan who threw the cup not only put the linesman at serious risk, he now also has the justice system on his back and has even done massive damage to his own club. We come to a fan action off the pitch that will keep FC Bayern Munich busy for a very long time, namely at the last annual general meeting, where the board and members of the club are invited. These scenes occurred.
Dass ich die Wortmeldungsliste schließen kann.
The fans in the hall seemed to be quite angry with the board around Oliver Kahn and President Herbert Hainer. But why? At this very annual general meeting, there was some discussion, and FC Bayern's management had to put up with numerous uncomfortable questions about its cooperation with Qatari corporations. Instead of answering these questions properly, Herbert Hainer ended the opportunity to ask questions as a fan in attendance. The fans were so upset as a result that they not only started booing loudly, but also made their own speeches and called on Hainer to resign. While this is not exactly the behavior one would expect at a shareholders meeting, countless soccer enthusiasts across Germany got behind the FC Bayern fans and showed solidarity with them. Let's continue with a scandal where on the one hand, you could say that a player went way too far, but many people don't know that the whole thing might have been preceded by an extremely scandalous fan action. It's about the famous kung fu kick of the former English star player Eric Contana. Contana, who played for Manchester United at the time, was undoubtedly one of the most talented players of his generation, but to this day, he is best known for jumping over the rail and spectacularly kicking a fan in a match. For this action, he was suspended for numerous games, but afterwards it turned out that he might have kicked the fan not without reason. Immediately before the kick, Contana was spat at and racially insulted by the fan, according to his own statements, which is why he lost all self-control. For the finale, we now come to some moments that show that some fans sometimes can't resist getting active themselves on the field of the professionals. For example, this fan manages to score a corner at halftime. Sometimes fans also storm the field during the game and try to score a goal. So this spectator not only surprised the entire stadium, he also left all the stewards behind on his way to the penalty spot, and the players were left looking really perplexed. Although his goal didn't count, of course, he will probably remember this moment for the rest of his life. And that's it! Which action did you think really went too far? Write us in the comments below. Oh, and if you liked this video, be sure to check out our other soccer videos. We'll see you next time, here at Wonderlane.